Well, hi. It's been a little while. I am in Detour, part of Michigan's Upper Peninsula, and I'm here to take a little break. Alright, so to break this down, I'm in Detour, a place in the Upper Peninsula where I like to go to get away for a little bit. It's about 2 hours from where I live, and it's a place I love. You're on Lake Huron. There's not many people around. It's only about 20 campsites here at the State Forest Campground, and they're all beautiful, just right in the woods. But I'm also only like, I don't know, 30 steps away from Lake Huron. Just the beach is right behind me. And I'm here because it's been a busy spring transition into summer. And what I mean by that is I have been roasting coffee 24/7. When I'm not at the market selling coffee, I am roasting. And let me tell you, that's a good problem. What I want to share with you guys is a little bit of an update on how this year's farmers markets are going for me, and maybe a couple of things, a couple of tips, things I would have liked to have known before I started farmers markets, now that I've been doing them for about a year solid now. So, how's it going? I mean, how's it going for you? It's been a couple of months since I've posted a video. I know that my farmers market video from a few months back in the winter, has been gaining some traction and people are seeing it, and that's awesome. So this is sort of a follow-up video to that. And what I really want to know is if any of you have been putting that video into practice. Did it help you guys? For me, the farmers markets have been stellar. Just absolutely amazing. I have been blown away by how the third wave specialty scene is being recognized, appreciated, and understood by so many more people than I ever thought. Last summer gave me a little bit of insight into that, and this summer has pretty well reinstated that for me. It has been amazing. So let's break down some numbers. For those of you who don't know, I use the Aleo Bullet, which is a kilogram drum roaster, electric drum roaster. It is an amazing machine. It safely roasts about 800 grams. I actually do 810 to fill 3 of my 8-ounce bags in one batch, which is awesome. I can do up to 900 grams with a little more caution. I watch it a little more carefully to make sure things are moving along still. And so with 810 grams being a pretty normal batch, I can get, probably like 3, 6, 9, 12, maybe 15 bags if I'm really lucky, roasted in about an hour. And that's pretty great. And so my schedule this summer has been pretty crazy because the last 3 markets that I've done this month in June, so right now it is June 17th, the last 3 markets I have done, which would be a Wednesday, a Thursday, and a Saturday, all have sold roughly 30 bags of coffee. 27 the first day, 27 the second day, and I didn't even look at what I did today. I just came from a market this morning, but it was probably really close to that number. So that means in a week, I've sold almost 90 bags of coffee. Let's say 80 to be safe. So what does that mean? Let's say I roast 10 bags in an hour. That's on the conservative side, right? That's 8 hours of roasting to fill out that week's bags, right? But I don't just do 8 hours of roasting because I don't want to make just enough for those markets, right? I make a little more. And I can't do it all on one day because I sell Wednesday, Thursday. I might need to make some Wednesday night to stock up. I might need to make some Thursday night. I might save it for Friday. And then I might sell a ton more on Saturday than I thought. So there's all these little sporadic roasting times. I have caught myself roasting for 10, 12 hours a day these last couple of weeks to prepare myself. And so I'm bringing close to 100 bags of coffee to most of these markets. And that is just so much more than I thought I would be doing while I was doing this last year. Last year I was doing, on a really good day, 40 bags of coffee, selling 40 bags of coffee. That only happened like 2 times last summer, but it did happen just in Charlevoix where I live. And now it seems like as the summer's ramping up, that might be pretty close to regular here in the next couple of weeks, and I have to keep on top of it. And so what does 10 to 12 hours of roasting on the bullet look like? It's not easy. You're constantly keeping a watchful eye on your roasts. You are constantly making sure that your profiles are right in the range that you expect them to be, and if they're not, you have to make sure you adjust the way that you market your coffee. Because for me, everything has moved to a universal label, because now I'm rotating my coffees more often, and we'll talk about that more in a little bit. So I'm writing down everything: taste notes, altitude, country of origin, all those things. So I have to be on top of what each roast is producing every single time. In 10 hours of roasting, that could be 30, 40 batches or something like that on the bullet, back to back. I might split my day up, maybe take a half an hour or an hour off at one time or 2 times to cool the roaster down, clean it out, and that would mean emptying the chaff collector and probably wiping down the impeller and the basket. So those things need to be done on a regular basis. And I just wanted to let you guys know how much of a workhorse the bullet continues to be. I did this last summer, I pushed it pretty hard, and now I'm pushing it triple time. 3 markets this year compared to 1 for the most of last summer, and then I added on a second market in September, which was at the tail end of that market anyway. So what does all this mean? Well, I'm bringing in a bunch more revenue. I cut back on my non-recurring expenses. If you guys, I'm trying to recall if I shared with you exactly how I broke down my income and expenses from that farmer's market video that I did before. But I cut back on a ton of my non-recurring expenses. That would include 2 roasters that I bought last year. The Jean Cafe I bought in January, and the Bullet I bought in June. What that means is that's like $5,000 worth of expenses that I don't record for this year. And most of my expenses now are in recurring expenses, such as things like sample cups, 8-ounce cups because I'm selling cups of coffee, and bags and labels and printing for those labels. Those things continue to be a recurring cost. They're never going to go away, and actually they're only going to rise as business grows. That's a good problem to have, and you can mitigate some of those things like I have done, and I'll touch on that in a second. But the income rises as well. The revenue rises, the profit is there. So I'll share with you, I haven't actually input my revenue from today in my breakdown, but I definitely have broken $2,000 profit for the year, profit. So that's good. That's not a ton of money, but my operating costs for the year, my revenue versus my expenses are in the, I believe, $6,000 range, maybe $5,000 to $6,000 range for revenue, and probably like half of that, or about $4,000 for expenses, and most of that is in beans. I'm probably at like $3,000 worth of green coffee expenses, and that's fine. It's working, and as the business grows the way it can for a home roaster who's pushing something like the Bullet as far as possible, I make little adjustments. One of those little adjustments I made was to shrink my label down only about 1 inch. And what that allowed me to do was to make a sheet of labels with 4 on them instead of 2, which essentially cut my label cost in half. But it didn't just cut it in half. I also sourced my label paper from a different label supplier, which ended up cutting my label cost by like 1/5. Like my label cost is like 1/5 of what it was. And labels prior, I was paying like $90 for a pack of 200 labels. Now I'm paying like $30 or no, I just paid $50 for a pack of 400 labels. So much cheaper. And it's also cheaper to print because there's fewer pages to get the same amount of labels. So I'm saving a bunch on that. And there's other areas as well, but you eventually work your way into figuring out what those are for you. Where to source sample cups and how many to buy. Volume is a big question. For a lot of people, you can't buy a ton of volume if you're only thinking you're going to sell 5 bags of coffee, 10 bags of coffee. You might only buy, let's say, 50 bags, depending on your sizes. I use 8-ounce bags, so 50 bags might cost me $30. But if I know that I'm going to sell, let's say, 100, maybe 200 bags in the next month, I certainly wouldn't want to just buy 50 bags. To prepare for that, I would want to buy something like 250, 500 bags. So something to think about is usually with most places that supply these types of things, you can purchase more at one time and you'll get a volume discount. Where I get my bags right now is a website called Save On Bags, and I'll put that on the screen, probably like right here or something. Save On Bags. This is a place where I get my craft stand-up pouch bags with valves in them, and I want to say that I buy them in either 250 or 500 pack increments. And the price is eluding me right now, but maybe I will put up the most recent price for that here as well, so you guys can see about what I pay for a pack of 250 or 500, whatever it is. I'll put it up on the screen. So start thinking about that. If you've watched my video before and you got into the farmers markets and things are going better than you thought, because it seems that the industry is really leaning into third wave and people are starting to get it. Maybe things are going better than you thought. Maybe you need to buy more. Think outside of things like Amazon, unless you use a business account and you have a system for that. That's fine. But there are wholesale suppliers for some of these things that you need to be considering too, because you might be able to save more money than you think if you consider buying, 500 bags or 500 cups or whatever it is, because the price really can come down per unit, and that can make a huge impact when you look at all your expenses by the end of the year. So these are things to think about. Also, the summer versus the spring and the fall here, you can get huge dips and fall-offs from the beginning of the month of May to the end of the month is an incredible rise in business that is hard to predict based on a week-to-week basis. So you might need to make an investment that feels risky at the time, but only a couple of weeks later you might think, wow, I'm really glad I did that. On the opposite side, I definitely remember last year where perhaps I made a similar investment of, let's say, 500 cups for cups of coffee. Now those will get used over time, but in September, that's when things start to really drop off here in northern Michigan. A lot of people start to go back home, wherever that is for them, to the southern states or wherever. And so business really just falls off, and we're left with locals, which are great. Local return customers are fantastic, and I love you all. So you really just got to be considerate of what kind of traffic you are going to get and try to plan for that accordingly. So it's been a great summer for me. Almost $2,000 profit on these bags of coffee, and I can't remember if I've updated you guys, but I switched my 2-tier pricing system to just one price across the board, and I'll tell you why. I did this back in January, and I've definitely made some videos since then, but if I didn't explain it then, I'll explain it now. I had a $10 bag of coffee that was like 4 or 5 coffees that I regularly put on rotation. Things like Bolivia, Haiti, Ethiopia, Yirgacheffe, and a couple others, Guatemala, some staples, some really, really safe staples. Great coffees, but what was happening was the $15 tiers, it wasn't like they were any better, really, subjectively, than what the $10 ones were, but perhaps they cost a little more, and it justified the $15 price tier. But what ended up happening was the $15 bags ended up kind of sitting a little longer than I want to. And once you get to, let's say, the next month of a bag maybe not selling, and let's say it's June like it is now, and you have bags from May, like mid to late May, hanging around, fewer and fewer people are going to continue considering buying those bags. And I found that happening more and more often with the $15 tier. So I slashed that, and then I raised the bottom tier up, and now all my bags on the table are $12. What this did was gave people more opportunity to consider every bag on the table and consider what they like most in the taste, what they can expect, as the biggest factor for how to consider what to buy. And that's the way I feel it should have been all along. But you know what? The $10, $15 tier, it worked for a while. People got to understand it. But this is one of those adjustments that I felt worked better for me. And it's been going great. Everything's rotating on a nice, kind of even basis. Nothing is hanging around too long. It's been wonderful. The other part of that is that those staples that I carried, ones like Ethiopia, the Misty Valley Yirgacheffe that I had, and the Haiti especially, kept rising in price. And I talked about that a little bit in the last video, how Haiti kept going up in price, and I had to cut that out of my $10 tier. And unfortunately, it hasn't come back because it is upper tier now. It's like 9 something, almost $10 a pound. And the other Haitis are $10, $11, $12 a pound. So it's really hard to fit them into my orders lately. But what I've been able to do is buy a bunch of something that's on the lower end, let's say $4, $5, $6 a pound, and then buy back little bits of selections of some of the higher tiered stuff. For example, I just was able to buy a bunch of Bolivia, Caranavi, almost $9 a pound, like $8.50, something like that. And I still have my wholesale account with Coffee Bean Corral. They've been an excellent supplier for me. I love what they're able to provide, and they're constantly rotating still, so I'm still seeing new stuff. So I bought my Bolivia, but it's because at $8.50 it's harder to justify in my margins, but I bought a huge bag of Mexico Chiapas, right? So why did I buy Mexico Chiapas? It's not because I love it personally. You know, it's got that smoky boldness. It's got a little spice that Mexico coffees tend to have, but it's also very two-dimensional. There's not much else going on, right? So why did I buy 50 pounds of that? It's because there's a lot of demand for dark roast coffee too. And what do you get when you dark roast 5 different coffees of all different kinds? You narrow down your profile until things just taste like a dark roast coffee. So why would I spend $8 to dark roast a coffee per pound, and when I could spend $5 a pound on something like Mexico Chiapas and dark roast that? So that's one way to think about how you can sneak in some higher tiered coffees if you think a little smartly about what you purchase on the lower price bracket. If you're thinking about doing that, consider something like a Brazil or a Mexico Chiapas, or maybe some other South American coffees or Colombias that don't have a huge range of taste profile. You know, maybe some lower altitude things. That way you can buy those for dark roast only, save some money so that you can spend that other portion of money on a higher tiered coffee. Now, you could also not and save even more money, but this is one of the ways that I'm able to offer a huge range. I had something like 8 or 9 different coffees on the table today. It was pretty amazing to be able to say to people, I'm sure that I have something for you, right? A dark roast here, a bunch of mediums here, a bunch of lights here, all different countries. This is nutty, this is sweet, this is like strawberry, this is like cherry and blueberry and smoky and bold. And I had an Indo Java that was super chocolatey, and a Peru with powdered cocoa taste notes, right? Like all across the board. And it's because I'm choosing wisely where exactly to allocate these bean expenses. So that was a little long-winded. All this to say, things are going well, and I fully intend to provide another farmers market update, whether that be in the fall or in the winter. Let's say something like, I don't know, October or November, when I can really start to get a good look at how we did overall this summer. But for right now, I'm camping tonight. I brought all my coffee stuff. I've got the AeroPress with me. I've got camera gear here with me, and I'm going to take some photos. I'm going to enjoy my time, shoot the sunset. That's going to happen in roughly 3 hours. Shoot the sunrise, and if the stars come out tonight, I'll shoot some Milky Way, and I'm excited for that. I'm excited for just a little break, because these 10, 12 hour, 8 hour roasting days, they get a little heavy once in a while. With 3 markets, and then I have to fit in raising my kids and doing all the other things that somebody does, having a family and owning a house and all that fun stuff. So until next time, thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. See ya.